basically, this is lessons from the drought in our home garden, which is basically an urban jungle, as you'll see as we go along, and also a bit from Monarto as well. So first off, we are on the land of the Ghana people, and in fact, this kurrajong tree in our backyard is possibly been there since before white people came into Australia, because it's not from anywhere around Adelaide area. It is from, probably a rainforest tree, and maybe the seeds might have been brought down on song lines from Queensland, and it's planted in our back garden, and it is actually in an area that used to have a stream running through it in wintertime. And we know that from a former neighbor who's now dead, and she was one of the first people in the street. Now, just to give a bit of a layout of the land, and in terms of passive solar design, it is totally the wrong direction, because you can see that the long axis is north-south, and in fact the principles of passive solar design have it that the long axis of the house should be east-west, so you can maximize the input of the sun in wintertime to warm the place, and then you put, of course, some sort of shading, etc., on that north side in summertime to keep the sun out. But one of the things that's interesting is the fact that in our little microclimate in Felixstow, because we get cooling breezes in late afternoon, early evening in summertime, flowing either from east to west over the hills or from west to east as they come up the Torrens River, it actually works perfectly for our particular microclimate, because any heat that builds up during the day, we can flush out, because we've redesigned this 40s weatherboard house to be perfectly able to be ventilated along that short axis, the east-west axis. And also in our redesign of the house, we've fully insulated all the interior and exterior walls, and so we can make it into a very comfortable house. Now, so this is a little bit wrong in one way, because the front garden on the east facing the street is actually full of plants as well, as we'll see, as well as the back garden. But you'll also see these purple dots around the garden, which I'll explain later. They're temperature and humidity sensors to look at the effect of the vegetation on the garden. Now, one thing I'd like to mention is that as I was actually working through setting up this presentation, I realized one particular thing. Our mode of gardening, and we produce a third of our food, as I'll mention later, in this urban jungle, our mode of gardening is basically attuned to living with drought. And I tried to look up, I'm sure that, well, I thought it was either Goiter or Eyre, but it might have been somebody else that made an observation early on when the first white people came here. And I still reckon it might have been John Eyre, because he was very much in tune with working with Aboriginal people, that mentioned that the normal state of affairs in South Australia would appear to be drought, punctuated by small periods of rainfall. Anyway, so we'll get into that, but of course, don't forget that this last drought, and it's not really over yet, has been one of the most severe in recorded history in South Australia. One of the things is if you look at the year 2024 in the calendar year, I did some calculations, and it was there would be only 4 years in 100 that would be less rainfall. But that gave a false picture, because in fact in January 2024 we had about 60 mils of rain, which was 40 mils above the January average. And so that sort of inflated the yearly total. If you took the year starting in February to the end of January 2025, it was down to at most 1 in 100-year event. And if you added the next couple of months where there was still no rain, it would probably be the worst drought, well, worst prolonged period, or just, over a year that we would have had in any history. So just give a bit of an idea of what we do at the moment. We do a lot of composting, and that actually helps because we use less water in the garden because of the compost cutting down the evaporation and stuff like this. Chris likes to be called the queen of composting, and I won't go through all the details, but basically you can see on the slide that you have to have different layers to get a hot compost, and we can get compost bin up to about 70 degrees, even when it's about 20 degrees outside. And this Getty bin is one of the bins. We also have, and this is some of the completed compost ready to go. We also have worm farms. One of the things about worm farms is that a lot of people will buy these ones that are tiered, like in the top part of the picture. And then, of course, when it gets hot in summer, all the worms fry. They don't realize that in summertime, you should take those boxes and put them on the ground so that the worms can escape into the ground when it's greater than 35 degrees so they don't die. Okay, and then they'll come back up, eat the compost, go back down into the earth. In wintertime, you can have them in the tiered boxes so you can get the worm juice and stuff like this. Okay, so some of the things that attune us to drought conditions is no green waste leaves the property. It all gets composted and used on the garden to, it's laid on top and gradually builds up the soil, etc. We don't dig except when we're actually planting. Okay, so there's no compaction of the earth from continual digging and stuff like this. Chop and drop, so we let lots of things rot on the ground. This is the sort of situation where we do dig when we're just about to plant, and you can see the richness of the soil there. So that's one of the reasons why we can grow such good food. We also do have a good method of working with the climate, because of course this is summertime, a fig tree in front of a studio that we've got. That studio, by the way, it's got aerated concrete paneling on the walls, then insulated as well. All the windows are double glazed. We don't have mechanical air conditioning in the house because of the influence of the garden and the ventilation practices we use and stuff like this. But we do have it all set up in that studio that if we ever do need to have air conditioning, mechanical, other than fans, of course, we use, we will be able to put it in there because it's a nice small space and it can be a cool retreat. Then in the wintertime, of course, because this studio is facing north and with the fig tree all pruned, you see that there's good ingress of solar radiation into that space, and you can sit in there in wintertime when it's sunny and not have any sort of heating on or anything like this and just be totally comfortable. By the way, speaking about that pruning, I prune all year round. When fruit is finished on trees, I prune them and stuff like this. And that, of course, that adds with the green material for the compost. And from that pruning, you can see that we can have a nice little enjoyable fire outside in autumn, spring, and winter, where we can enjoy using those prunings that have been suitably dried and enjoy sort of a double benefit of the fruit trees. Okay, so some of the things we use to take care of, and I wanted to explain all of these so that, then we can see the effects when we've had the big drought as well. We keep all the water on the ground, on the property. Swales are dug to keep the water in. I'll show you a picture in a minute. And the rain is stored in the ground by the trees. We have one smallish tank, 2,000 liters, for cooking and drinking purposes, but basically our water storage for the fruit trees and nut trees is actually in the ground. In heavy rain, the swales become full, and you know how the council rules have that you have one pipe for overflow into the street. Well, we don't. And we've actually had council people around, and because of the methods we use, they don't complain about the fact that we don't have that pipe to the outside. And the roots of some trees seek it out and do not need watering. Okay, so for instance, as we'll see later, macadamias from our property and stuff like this. The macadamia tree is deep rooted, so it doesn't need watering. Pecan tree is deep rooted, doesn't need watering. Some other things like citrus do need surface watering, and I'll explain how we do that in a minute. And so the idea of swales is you have a ditch dug, and it's a path of water storage. You can see here in this picture, this is digging in our front garden. You can see the water in that dug part. That actually is water from the roof of our bathroom, which is the only addition we had to put onto the house because the original bathroom turned out to be in the middle of the house because of how the house was originally built bit by bit, and eventually the bathroom got in the inside of the middle of the house and became a good place for a termite nest. So we eventually moved the bathroom so it could get more ventilation. And on that roof, we then put a pipe down and a pipe under the ground into this swale to store water near a quandong tree and Asian pear and stuff like this. Oops, what is that?
Well, John, do you talking of termites? Do you have a termite problem ongoing?
Not ongoing.
No,
No, something's going wrong here with this presentation. Just a second. No, we don't have it ongoing.
because I mean
But
termites.
we do have people monitoring that. There's a company from Murray Bridge that comes and monitors that just to make sure that we don't.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because they like rotting wood, don't they?
Oh yeah,
Termites.
of course. Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, that's their job. Take care of the
Yeah.
rotten wood. Yep.
Hmm.
Now, speaking about watering, and this is one of the things, and this helps with the dealing with droughts. We use a system called Oya pots, and we found this at first impetus for this at the Eden Project in Cornwall. Now, the Eden Project, somebody built on an old quarry in Cornwall two enormous domes, and one is a rainforest dome, and the other one's a Mediterranean dome to show people in England in particular, and also tourists, what sort of conditions happen in those particular areas. In the Mediterranean dome, we noticed some ceramic pots, unglazed, that were used for a thing called partial root zone drying irrigation. And unglazed, so that what you do is you stick the ceramic pot a little bit into the ground, maybe 10 centimeters into the ground, fill it up with water. You only place it in one place around a tree, okay? One spot. And you fill it up with water, and that slowly seeps out into the ground. Now, we can't take care of, because we have 90 food producing plants around the garden, we can't take care of 90 ceramic pots, because you have to take these away from the plants in the wintertime. We're not going to be able to store those. But what we did was get black plastic pots that we just get off the street, because people buy plants and then they just toss them out. And we fill it first with newspaper, then compost, then sticks to keep the birds from digging out the compost. Stick it, as I say, about 10 centimeters into the ground at one spot beside a tree, and just water into that. And say for citrus trees, and normal conditions in summertime, maybe once a week. And so it's a lot less water. Is what tends to happen with people normally dig like a dish around a fruit tree. They'll tend to overwater it. And so you end up with fruit that's not as intense, not as great taste. With this system, you use less water, use less energy of yourself to do the watering, and also the fruit is more intense. Now we take them up in wintertime, then the next springtime we'll put them at a different spot near the tree. And so all the roots sort of gravitate towards that spot, because they know that's where they're getting water. But we don't use as much water, and so we can deal with drought better.
Can I just butt in here, John?
Yeah.
I've never seen these, but I've seen pictures and read about it.
Yep.
And my background is irrigated horticulture.
Yep.
And I think your pots actually originated in the Sahel, the dry area of West Africa.
Oh, right. Because
they had these huge ceramic pots. They didn't lift them up. They were permanently in place.
Yeah, I assumed it was just in somewhere like Syria or somewhere like that, but I can well imagine that it being in the Sahel, maybe even more widespread, maybe in the Mediterranean as well. So yeah, and I don't know if they still do it, but there was one winery in the Limestone Coast that used it as well. Because, of course, once again, think of it, the best wine is made from grapes that are not overwatered. Okay.
Well, just to continue that,
yeah, sure.
The famous sort of red soils further south.
Yep.
I once on a trip saw a quarry face into one of those vineyards.
Yep.
And they have these solution tubes in the limestone there, and so what in fact they have is big pots all round, just naturally made in the limestone.
Yeah.
And so that's probably part of the reason of their success with certainly with the red grape.
Exactly. Yep. So yeah, we have no pipe irrigation. Other people use pipes and drippers and stuff like this, but we find that often we're moving what we're doing in the garden, because our garden is not static. A lot of it is evolving, because of course, especially with climate change, some things you find out, well, they weren't appropriate necessarily, so we'll have to alter, and they die off, and we'll replace them with something else that we think might be more appropriate, as we'll talk about a bit more as we go along.
Before you go on, John, can I interrupt as well?
Sure.
So how far away from the trunk of the tree do you put
Okay, so it's usually It depends on which type of tree it is, but you say with a lime tree or something like that, it'd be maybe a meter away from or half a meter to a meter away from the trunk.
And when you dig them in, are you worried about damaging the roots that might already be there from that tree?
Well, we try to take as much care of that as possible, yes. So obviously you don't want to, cause the root damage. But
you can hack roots a great deal without really making much difference to your orchard
that's what
or
I was
vineyard.
just about to say, that we don't worry overly about it because they'll recover, because they're producing those fine roots to go towards the water anyway. So as it says in the last point here, the roots quickly adapt to the source of water. And we've been doing it a long time, and it seems very successful. So we get lots of food. We're getting on to the drought particular things in a minute, but I needed to sort of set the scene of how we, sort of look at water saving and energy saving as much as possible in the first place. So this is our macadamia tree just before it flowers. This orange tree, which is bountiful at the moment. We're getting oranges all the time, and it's a navel, and it cost a whole $5, that one, because they lost the label or something like that, but it turned out to be navel. This is our winter garden at the moment, with the weather station that we've set up as well. Lots of broad beans coming on, kale, etc., of different kinds. This is a frog pond, but I'll tell you a bit more about what happened with the drought and the frogs. This frog pond is watered from a pipe. You might be able to see a black tube near the back. It's off that studio, so all the water from the studio goes into this frog pond. So we grow about a third of our food and fruits from cold climates right through subtropical, also nuts, indigenous nuts and fruit, and we keep fit and healthy. So this is some quandongs, and we dry a lot of stuff, okay? Apples, pears, apples, peaches, apricots, all that sort of stuff. Now, this is produce from this year, from the drought, okay? This stuff grew throughout, matured through the drought period. So I just want to give a couple of observations that we've really learned from the drought. One is, if you look at the front plate, you'll see varying sizes of limes and macroot as well. But the limes, this is one effect of the drought. The limes in general have been a lot smaller than normal, but there's still lots of them, okay? And so, funnily enough, that's from our point of view. Some of the small ones are about the same size as they sell for $2 in the central market. And that's the small ones. The big ones that you don't even see in the market. Normally, without drought, we'll get up to 3 crops of limes a year, and when we have drought, about 2 crops. We also have here on this plate, we've got some Kurjan pods. The Aboriginal people used to make damper from the nuts in those, the seeds. You have to be very careful though, because when they're mature, they've got some needle-like fibers in the pods, and so the Aboriginal people would wash them in streams for days to get rid of those fibers before they ever use them. At the back, the brown things are jujubes, Chinese dates. The Chinese date didn't seem to get affected by the drought. We've got dried oranges in that tray as well. Got some quandong nuts, the nut inside the quandong. And in the back, there's some pecans. And also you can see on the tray and in that basket macadamias. Now this is one of the things that's interesting. In this massive drought, we've had the biggest crop of macadamias, the biggest crop of pecans we have ever had. Possibly because with no rain in the springtime, there was greater cross-pollination. Well, it's not really cross-pollination because these are self-pollinating trees, but still the bees will have to go from flower to flower, okay, even though on the same plant. And so if you didn't have, you know, especially in springtime, you gotta have some quite drenching rains sometimes, and that might take away a lot of the flower, or a lot of the flower, even if it's been pollinated. So ironically, the drought has been good for the macadamias and pecans. So just in our garden, we have many indigenous plants as well. Macadamia, of course, quandong, lots of quandong, native ginger, limes, asparagus, native asparagus, native orange. They haven't produced yet. They're very tiny yet. Mint, currajong, carcala, and kangaroo apple. The garden is a bird attractor. We have native bees, 4 types of frogs. But one of the interesting things, oh, no, I'll get to that in a minute. We have blue-tongued lizards as well. By the way, if you look at this diagram, this picture, you can see some sticks poking out of this river red gum, which we chop a hell of a lot. You can see it's been coppiced quite a bit because we don't want to get big or anything like this, but we use the wood as well. But you see some tubes sticking out. They are repositories for native bees. And we actually have seen native bees coming out of them. In fact, I can see one particular one near the bottom where you can see a plug because the native bees laid some eggs in there. Okay, now about the big drought. It was interesting because I think urban dwellers did not feel as much if they're not also gardeners, because there's water in the Murray-Darling system because of all the rains on the East Coast. And so there was no restrictions. We also have the desal plant. So there are no water restrictions. So they probably didn't realize how severe it was, or people that, you know, aren't cognizant of what's going on around them. I mean, I heard somebody the other day complaining about the rain. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, we're still in drought and you're complaining about rain. But within the farming communities, it might take them years to recover. And there's lots of dead or dying trees in the rural areas. Maybe this will promote more urban production. But we actually saw some warning signs. The subsoil was dry. Of course, anybody that did any sort of digging for planting anything would have noticed that. But also in springtime, the banjo frogs in particular make such a racket in the breeding season that sometimes it's actually hard to sleep in the house. Sorry about that, but you know, it is that way. But we didn't hear anything in springtime at all from any of the frogs of the 4 types, okay? We're just hearing some froglets at the moment, and so they're probably doing some breeding. Haven't heard, I heard a tree frog recently, but anyway, and the currajong shed all its leaves. Now, it's that classification of tree called semi-deciduous, which often occurs in the more northerly parts of Australia in subtropical and tropical areas, where some trees will shed their leaves during the summertime, during the dry season. It is, they do, but down here they'll shed them in summertime, but not every year. And this last year in springtime it started shedding all its leaves, possibly because there was just not going to be any rainfall to make it viable. It's coming back now, but that does happen. It's semi-deciduous, as I say. Some other trees are flowering wildly, and sometimes that happens when there's stress on them, because there's sort of a mechanism that says, okay, we're really under stress. We've got to make sure that we produce flowers so that if it does rain, and our seeds maybe will grow some more plants elsewhere. So how do we take care of drought conditions? The compost, no digging, no water leaves the property, the oya pots, continual pruning so there's not as much stress on the plants as well, maintaining the swales. Funnily enough, intensive planting, which we do, because as I said, we've got over 90 food-producing plants in the garden. The trees tend to shade each other and protect each other from winds as well. There's such a diverse range of plants that we provide for pollinators, and we plant more heat and drought-tolerant food plants. So for a bit, I'll switch to the Monarto region because that provided quite a few lessons, I thought, as well. This property, if you look at sort of boundary fences, there's the road on the north, okay? And then there's sort of down the east side and the south part, you can see sort of virtually straight lines. It's almost a square, this property. It's 53 hectares. The more dense areas on the land are parts that were never cleared. The sparsely planted versions are ones that were either planted for the Monarto City project, which was going to happen, but didn't, in the 70s, proposed by Don Dunstan, and stuffed up by Malcolm Fraser and others. These were for plantings for the Monarto City, plus Chris and I have planted over 6,000 seedlings as well. But our main activity now is to promote the movement of the scrub, and also we've got a biodiversity credit scheme grant to improve the biodiversity on the plot on the area for over the 10 years, and we're doing a lot of work with a company called Seeding Natives, doing direct seeding and stuff like this, but that's only local provenance stuff. But one of the things that's interesting is that through some research, basically we reckon that the total rainfall is increasing because of various aspects. One is the increase in vegetation on the plateau. One probably is the movement of the low pressure systems further to the south because of the southern annular mode, which allows more rainfall to come in below the main hills area, and proximity to Lake Alexandrina as well. So when we have southerly winds, they bring moisture off Lake Alexandrina up to that Monarto Plateau. So as an example, in the month ending June 12 this year, there's 61 mils at Monarto South, 47 at Murray Bridge, and 93 at that place, which is between Monarto South and Murray Bridge, or between Monarto's Zoo and Murray Bridge.
John, do you think that's due to the plants that you've put in, the fact that you've planted
not just us, not us particularly, but just the whole plateau itself, because they planted millions of trees for the Monarto City project.
Yeah.
Over the whole plateau. Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't.
Is the zoo included in that area?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes right from, if you go up the top of Kellington Hill to basically before you drop down into Murray Bridge, that whole plateau.
Yeah.
But
And is it, well,
go ahead.
so it's due to tree planting. Is that because trees they attract clouds?
Well, no. Basically, what happens is, there's an atmospheric physicist that has got a couple of good papers on this. She's well, she is Russian, but she's worked with people in Queensland as well. I think she's still in Russia though. And the basic idea is that if you are close enough to the ocean, what happens when the winds come off the ocean, they'll bring some moisture as well. Okay, and then if you're close enough to those winds coming in, and you've got a bit of elevation, so you've got the Monarto Plateau, which is a bit of elevation, then you've got it vegetated as well with the evapotranspiration and like this. There's enough interference and addition to that moisture off the ocean that it can help enhance the rainfall. Okay, that's the theory from her work in atmospheric physics. But the feature in the second dot point here is the fact that our property, why it's getting more than say Monarto South and Murray Bridge, is that it's actually the highest point on the Monarto Plateau. Okay, so you've got that extra bit of elevation. Doesn't look like much, but if you actually start at the top of Kellington Hill and then go east, you can see that there's quite a bit of increase in elevation, relatively speaking, anyway, and it's probably enough just to make that difference. But as well, and we've done some work recently about the changes in intensity, like the basic. One of the principles of climate change is the fact that the total magnitude of rainfall decreases in general, because the rest of South Australia is decreasing. But often what happens is that it increases in intensity, though. So when you do get some rain, it might be more intense than it otherwise had been. Okay. And so you do get some freak events. In January 2024, in one day we had 100 mils, because I know for a fact, because we went out, so 2 days later, and there had been nothing in between, and we'd been out just before that, and with less than 25 mils nearby. And in fact, one of that things about that, this is in the middle of a dry creek bed, because before white people came along, there was a winter creek through this particular area. If you go back here, you can see down through, coming from southeast to northwest, you can see a little line of trees and a bit of a depression. That was originally a creek bed, but because of the clearing, it got silted up. In fact, down near the bottom of our property, we actually dug down a half a meter and found the top of an old dam. It had silted up that much that was now below the line of the soil. But this little creek, dry creek, ancient creek, we have had the property 41 years, and we had never seen water in it. But that day, you can see all that debris up against those pine trees. That day, there was a flood and put all that debris up against the trees. So, and we saw other signs of flooding as well. Just to give you an idea of what the place is like, this is South Australian blue gum, Eucalyptus leucoxylum. That's Chris in front of it. So you can see how big it is. It might be one of the biggest trees in the valley. It's massive. And I just thought I'd show that as an example of things. This is an iconic plant. It's called Monarto mint bush or Prostantha urobioides. There are only two populations of it, and that's one of the reasons this property is special. This our place and 400 k's away at Mount Monster in the southeast near Keith. We are basically working with botanists to save this plant from extinction, extending its range through various processes of germinating from it, these plants and etc. So we call this place Mint Bush Farm.
Could I just
Just before you go on, John,
isn't
if,
Monarto Zoo actually planting those? I remember that they have a special group which does replanting of vegetation. I'm pretty sure I remember them saying that they've got the Monarto mint bush there, and they were doing plantings of it there. Have you heard?
No, well they're planting them with seeds from our place.
I see, right.
The seeds then germinated, planting out the plants at the zoo. Yes,
Yeah.
but they're with seeds from our place. They don't have
John,
extant on the zoo anymore either. They used to have some, and we went searching for the last couple remaining, and they were gone.
Oh, that's a real shame. Have
Yeah.
you complained to them? Because
Well, no,
really,
but we've you know they're planting them out with stuff from our place. That's what we're trying to do. You know, extend the range.
oh, I see, yes, and they're still surviving at the zoo, are they?
Yeah, they're thriving. Yeah,
Oh, good. Well, that's terrific.
yeah.
John,
I've
is it
been volunteer for a long time, so I've got an interest.
Yep.
is it possible to go back to the aerial view of your property?
Yeah, sure.
I think one of the things I noticed was that your property, you can see it standing out, and obviously the vegetation is healthier on your property than the surrounding properties.
Oh, of course. That's actually made a bit of a problem for us in one odd respect, because around the area, if we had a bigger view, you could see what you're saying about even more so. Around the area, some people have sheep and stuff like this, so they provide water for the sheep. And of course, what happens is that kangaroos will breed up if they have water. Okay, if they don't have water, they'll just wait, like a lot of the vegetation will wait as well. But because where they get the water, there's not the vegetation for them to eat, they'll come onto our place. And, you know, we've had actually an explosion of number of kangaroos, and we've had to take out a license to actually cull some as well because of that, because they, you know, there's too many. When we first went to the place 40 years ago, that we'd see, you know, 10 or 15 roos. About a year ago, the guy that was doing is doing direct seeding, he counted 75 in one day. So, you know, but you know, we still have roos there, and we don't want to eradicate them by any means, but we don't want to overgrazing of the plants.
It is quite impressive, the just looking at the soil and the vegetation close to the fence that John and Chris have got,
Yeah,
and the stuff over the other side where they're
you
running
can see
sheep.
on that
Yeah.
western side in particular, it looks pretty desolate, really.
Yeah, and at one stage I actually suggested to John that we could have a kind of an honours project in soil science, when we could look at the nature of the soil on one
Yeah.
side compared to the other. We never got that one going,
Yeah.
but I've seen something similarly impressive at a place called Robertstown, where a guy has taken a lot of care building up his soil, mainly using pig manure and hay. I can't remember actually quite, but you know, it shows that you can actually bring those desolate places back.
Yeah, for sure. One of the odd things is that one on the west, that property on the west, because it's on the west and in the, you know, when it's raining in winter, you know, often we'll get soil being brought on to our place with the water. And sometimes in summertime, if you get a northwesterly wind, we'll get soil blown in on there from the other place as well. So it's being denuded and adding to our place, ironically. Now, so some of the drought effects. So with the mint bush, in winter 2023, we planted 50 seedlings of mint bush in the scrub behind our shed in 2 spots. And we planted there to gain some protection from the scrub. We watered them from time to time the following summer, and then we planted another 14 seedlings in winter 2024. These are grown by people at Department of Environment and Water, by the way, using methods that were developed to enhance the germination and using seeds from our place that we gathered. And we hope that we don't have to water those 14 during the summer of 2024, 2025, but of course the big drought came along. So we've been watering all of them because they're very precious plants. We've been watering nothing else, but just those 2 sets every few weeks. And about 70% of the 2 plantings are thriving with that. But that shows the extra work we had to do. And this is Chris with some of the water containers and a cart that I would drag up into the scrub to plant with. And you can see that the ground is pretty bare because of that big drought. And in fact, as part of this project with the biodiversity credit scheme, we've got one area which we fenced off as an exclusion zone, and the seeding natives is direct seeded in both inside this fence in the exclusion zone and outside, and we're going to test the grazing pressure from roos, rabbits, hares, because of course the neighbors won't control rabbits and hares. We do, but they don't. And outside versus the inside, which is more protected because we've got a rabbit-proof fence around there. But ironically, luckily, the last bit of direct seeding that Andrew did was in late August, early September last year, because it was forecast that we'd be having some spring rain. And so he thought, well, we'll plant now, and then this stuff will come up in spring and blah, blah, blah. But luckily it didn't, oddly, it didn't rain after that, because what might have happened is that might have gotten a little bit of rain, some germination, and then, severe heat in the summer and everything would die. So we're waiting now because there's still all that seed bank in there. And with the recent rains and hopefully get more rains coming up, that we'll now get a good germination of the direct seeding. But you can see it's pretty dry looking at the moment. But there are some benefits of the big drought as well. This is because one of the problems, we've got various problems with different invasive species, which we work on. And one of them that is pretty troublesome to get rid of is onion weed. That you can see here, at least some of the onion weed has been basically killed by the drought. Not all of it, but it's at least reduced the problem somewhat. Some of the effects of the drought, some bushes suffered, but the established trees and larger shrubs that are used to being in severe conditions at times just shut down and waited until the rain. And we were out there on Saturday and everything looks quite vibrant. It's still a green drought, but in the mallee sort of trees and stuff like this, they're doing quite all right because there's been a reasonable amount of rainfall. Not enough yet, but still a reasonable amount. But in contrast, if you go through the Adelaide Hills, there's a lot of trees that have died because some of them are more used to frequent water than the ones in the mallee. So that's one of the lessons and it can help in suburban gardens too. If you're going to be planting out any natives, you might sort of think about planting ones that are from more arid conditions or semi-arid conditions. And in fact, in our council area, some of the verge trees that the council has been planting are Gidgera parviflora, which is from the arid lands, and it's thriving as a street tree, and also some currajongs as well. So, you know, they're taking that lesson on board already. By the way, I just wanted to show this sort of shot. This was taken on Saturday, in fact. These blue gums in the background are grown from, we grew them from seed from our blue gums and planted them out. And so you can see that they're pretty vibrant looking. The green on the ground, that's sort of evidence, as we call it, and lots of people call it, what's happening right at the moment, because the drought hasn't broken. So this, you could call this period the green drought, because we look and see green on the ground, but the subsoil is still quite parched. By the way, you can grow other things in the Mallee, which aren't really from there, but they're from dry conditions in the Eyre Peninsula. These are sugar gums, and they're pretty big as well. Okay, so back to Felixstow. I'm going to talk a little bit about what our garden does for climate control. So with good soil, you get good vegetation, and that helps with climate control. There's little knowledge of the general climate control effects of vegetation. We mainly think about it, oh, well, we shade the house in summertime, especially on the north and west. And this is done with deciduous trees that then let in the sun during winter. But also there's the evapotranspiration effects, other effects as well. So what we've done, I got some funding to put sensors around the garden, with a couple in the house as well, and one in the open in a neighbor's yard, to compare what's happening in the open area versus in our garden. Now, this is a picture of one of the sensors just outside the back door on the west. Humidity, relative humidity and temperature recorded. I've made some graphs from what was happening. This was actually February 2024. I haven't got the stuff from this year, but it'd be similar. This is the difference in temperature over 11 days between the open ground across the street and well, might have been actually that sensor. It was similar to that. And you can see there's upwards of 10 degrees difference in the middle of the day between the open area and in the garden. Well, the lowest is about 3, but mostly somewhere between 6 and 10 degrees. And so it's having that nice benefit. This was around Womadelaide, slightly different, but still up to 6 to 8 degrees difference. And but one of the interesting things is in the middle of winter, you'll see the spikes below 0. So in other words, at nighttime in winter, it's actually warmer in our garden than in the open area. So it actually has a dual benefit of warmth around the house at nighttime in winter, more so than in an open area across the street.
Could I ask a question, please?
Sure.
All I can see is you've got one line going up and down. Is that the measurement of the open ground or?
No, difference. It's the difference between the open and the vegetation.
Oh, I see. So it's just yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So for instance, with this one, whoops. Okay, so this is the temperature difference between the open ground. So the open ground is 10 degrees higher than in the vegetation in that middle one. Okay.
Well, is the vegetation reading down here? Is that the little numbers going across?
No, the down here is the number is over the days, 11 days.
Oh.
Now, this is just the difference in temperature between the two, between the open ground and the vegetation over 11 days in February.
So where
Yeah.
it's low points, it's different days from these with high points.
Yeah, well, the low points are nighttime. The high points are middle of the day.
Right.
So nighttime, there's not much difference between the two, between the open ground and because it's close to zero, right? But in the middle of the day, it gets much hotter in the open ground than the temperature by, 6 to 10 degrees.
So
I was going.
nighttime, the ground would perhaps keep the temperature more even than
No. At nighttime, there's virtually almost no difference between
right.
the open ground and vegetation. Because I've just taken the temperature in the open ground minus the temperature in the vegetation.
John, you brought up a point I was going to bring up later. Was I was going to congratulate you on your being able to grow subtropical plants in the Mallee because
No,
winter
the
frosts are
subtropical
severe.
plants are in our garden. Yeah, that's right.
And I think the fact you've got canopy
Yeah,
protects them from frost during the
during the
during winter, and
winter.
so you'll be able to grow macadamias, which certainly wouldn't be
Macadamias.
frost
We have,
tolerant during winter.
Yeah, we have white sapote as well, which is a tropical fruit. Which is you might not know, it's also called ice cream fruit. It's a fruit that's so sweet that I actually have to put lime on it to be able to eat it because it's too sweet, which is amazing. So as I say, you can see here, because we're getting spikes at nighttime way down to negative, it means that the vegetation is warm. In the vegetation, it's warmer than in the open ground. But in the middle of the day, it's still warmer in the open ground than in the vegetation. Okay, so, but of course, we're in the house, we're getting the sunshine coming in and not just the vegetation. This is finally a graph that shows what's happened. Now, this is extra benefit from the things we've done in the house. So basically, this is actual real temperature, not any temperature differences. This is the open ground, okay, is the orange, and you can see it's wildly fluctuating. This is in that same period in February. So it's going up to 43 degrees on one day in that open ground, but dropping quite low at night. Not a bad idea. But the blue is in our kitchen, okay, and the green is in one of our bedrooms, okay, and you can see that the green is mostly getting down to quite cool temperatures at nighttime, even on days when it was getting, fairly hot outside. And so it's good for sleeping, but that's the benefit of our renovations as well as the vegetation. It's hard to decouple the two of them. And you can see it's a little bit warmer in the kitchen because, of course, there's more activity in there for cooking and stuff like this. But I think this is quite a good graph as well because it shows that added benefit of the way we've run the house. Because
if I could sort of put in some
Yeah.
slight local or knowledge from being friends with you, you put clay on the walls of the house, didn't you?
No, that's just two rooms.
Yeah.
That's two rooms, so that helps as well. And one of those is that bedroom where the sensor is. So that probably helps, yes, exactly, absorb some of the heat. So it's basically almost it's got the clay, it's got the thermal mass on the inside, yes. but all the walls are insulated, but also we've got the building set up so we can fully ventilate the house whenever we want and close it off when we want. So that's that great benefit. So you know, you can see that the highest temperature, at the middle of the night, the worst night is the temperature only gets down to 23 in that room. But then if you have fans, you can get it down, you know, the feeling down even more so. Because there was one great piece of work done at University of Sydney 2023, 2024, where they showed that if you, with simulations, but I can certainly believe it, that if you use air conditioning and you want to have the effect of having the air temperature at 24 degrees, so you set your thermostat at 24. If instead you have also things like ceiling fans and floor fans, you can set your thermostat at 27 and still get the same benefit as though you didn't have the fans and set the thermostat at 24. And so you're using a lot less energy, but getting the same benefit, because of course fans use bugger all electricity. And so it really shows the benefit of using fans as much as possible before you turn the aircon on, even if you have aircon, which we don't. Okay, so we're pretty much close to the end, but healthy soil is one of the big things to really concentrate on, because I mean, one of the big problems is that around the world, soils are being depleted like mad. So if we can do anything on for ourselves to help build up soil, we can actually do a lot of good. If you want to see more about our garden, you can Google Mediterranean Mindset Gardening Australia, because we were on there 2.5 years ago. And also, we were in a Guardian Australia article last year, which was titled "We Basically Live in the Jungle." You can look that up. And also, next Tuesday, we'll give extended versions of these two talks into two separate ones. The Robin Hood Hotel on Portrush Road, this is part of the Raising the Bar festivities. At 6:30 p.m. I'll talk more about the Mallee, a lot more about that. And at 8 o'clock, Chris will talk more about the urban jungle. And if you want to go to it, go to Raising the Bar on the Norwood, Payneham and St. Peter's Council site and register. And if that doesn't suit that particular night, you can search for us on the Nature Festival site, because we'll be presenting similar things again on October 11, probably in the Payneham Library on OG Road, but that's to be confirmed. And I think that's it. Thank you very much. And certainly any more questions, happy to. I'll stop sharing for the moment, but any more questions, go for it. And otherwise we'll just and if you want me to refer back to the slides again, we can do that.
I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Your produce that you grow on your own property, is it too much for yourself and your family to eat on its own? And what do you do?
Well, as you said, two things. You saw we do dry a lot of stuff, especially fruit and nuts. You know, we're trying to eat up the macadamias from last year right now, because as these dry, we'll be eating into them, that sort of thing. We were just over in Melbourne to visit our family last 2 weeks ago, and so we took a lot of dried peaches, dried apples, etc., rehydrated them for breakfast and things like this. So we dry a lot of stuff. We give stuff away to other people. and trade some of it. But I mean, a lot of it we just sort of dry. We don't do preserves really. We used to make jams and stuff like this, but mainly we just dry stuff and use it later on. So we have fruit basically all year round.
Okay. Are you more or less vegetarian? Do we try to eat more and more of your products?
We call ourselves flexitarian. We eat a little bit of meat, but not very much. But one of the things we are going to make this weekend, okay, I'll start again in a way. So as at Monarto, we've had to call some of the kangaroos.
Oh yes.
We have we've got a license for it, etc. And we have a shooter that does it, but he's also a qualified butcher.
Ah,
When
excellent.
he shoots them, he carves them up and stuff like this. So we get some of that, but he gets it and distributes it with his friends and everything like this. He's not allowed to sell it under the license.
Why is he not allowed to sell it? That sounds
There's different licenses. There's license for a commercial shooter. There's license for pest eradication, as it's called. But so we've got that license. So it's a different grade of license. Okay. And so on the weekend, we're going to make spaghetti and meatballs with kangaroo meat.
That's excellent. Okay, my other question is the pruning.
Yep.
Now, does that mean you're getting up on ladders, and are you concerned?
Okay, that's a very good point. Now, if we didn't prune every year, the pecan in particular, and the macadamia, but not more the pecan than anything, if we didn't prune it heavily every year, it would grow to probably 20 to 25 meters high. Okay, so I prune it heavily to keep it down so I don't have to get up on ladders so much. Our apple trees, and we have probably about 8 to 10 different varieties of apples. The tallest apple tree would be no higher than myself, I don't think. And yet we get masses of apples. And so we prune everything down as much as possible. You saw that picture of the fig tree?
Yeah.
I can prune the top of that just on a tiny step ladder. Because, of course, we don't want to be up on ladders any more than necessary. And in fact, we have a rule that nobody gets up. We do have a bigger ladder as well. Neither of us can get up on that ladder unless there's somebody helping me.
Right, fair enough.
Okay? Because Chris used to work in the orthopedics ward at Adelaide Hospital, and the number of people in their 70s in particular who have fallen off ladders and broken their pelvis or leg or something, including one person who fell off his ladder and broke his leg.
Oh no.
I say his leg. He only had one leg and he was up a ladder.
I got one last question for you. We got big river red gums in the back of our place because we back onto Brown Hill Creek, and they're monsters. They're really, really big. Should I be trying to use some of these OLIP pots to support them? Because I understand the root systems are not very deep. You may have heard about the one near the Mitcham school where it fell over recently, like a day or so ago. Those are the same ones we have in our backyard. Should I be looking at watering them through the drought, or are they going to be okay?
I would think they'd be okay.
Right.
I mean, maybe they're not hugely deep, but they should be reasonably deep rooted, to be honest.
Well, that's what I was hoping, except when that one fell over, I was a bit nervous now. I thought,
yeah, well, it depends on where they're planted as well. I mean, you're near Brown Hill Creek, so they should be able to get water out of that creek, because even in drought, there should be water under the ground in that creek, so it should be all right. I would think.
Right.
John,
Don't hold me to that.
John, I am full of admiration of your productivity. Here in Victor Harbor, as a retired horticulturalist, I planted all sorts of things. I get a crop of my citrus trees, but I lose everything else to the birds, the possums, and the bush rats.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, one of the things that we've got so much that you know, some things get done by the birds. We have been able to keep, through various methods, keep possums out of the property, pretty much. Rats get a little bit, but not very much. One of the things Tom was asking about the ladders and everything like this, and I mentioned the apple trees. So, for instance, with the apple trees, the other benefit of keeping them only about my height or tiny bit higher is that actually those we can net. So that keeps the problem with the birds away and stuff like this. We can net a few other things, but a lot of things we don't net. But we do have some other weird sort of things as well. For instance, locust trees. Okay, so in springtime, that's when you get the locusts. Okay, so at the moment, there's lots of small locusts on our locust trees. So what we'll do soon is that at the top of the locust trees, we'll actually prune that now. What'll happen is, because the locust trees are so fast growing, they'll grow lots of new growth at the top, so with no fruit. So when the birds go over, all they'll see is that green canopy. They won't see the fruit underneath. And so we'll keep most of the locusts because of doing that. So there's some extra little trick, and we do that with the fig as well. So when the figs start, before the figs start, we'll prune the growth at the top, and then there'll be lots of new green growth, but no fruit on that, and that helps as well. So you have to interact quite a lot. And so, as I say, I'm the constant pruner, and at various times when nobody else even thinks about doing it. So
sounds clever, John. I was going to ask you, you were talking about drying the fruit. You obviously have a electric dryer, something like that.
Yes.
Something, yeah, because we know we had fruit at our last place. We don't have, and I used to try to dry apricots on the roof.
Right.
The trouble is, things get into them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that we did used to use, but it eventually rotted out, was that we had a specially designed fruit dryer that had just a tiny little fan in it to keep things from getting moldy. And it was basically solar drying, but it was totally enclosed because it was designed by an engineer from University of Melbourne that was a friend of ours. But yeah, we do dry them in a electric dryer now with, I think it's got 5 trays, and so we'll be able to dry things pretty quickly, and so we'll go through quite a lot of volume of drying.
Could I just say, I live around Norwood, I live in Norwood, and quite a few people there grow fruit and vegetables, so they try to. And my neighbours and also me have found that last year the possums just stripped everything they could get. Leaves, my grapevine was being stripped the top of leaves so fast they couldn't grow. And some neighbours actually very kindly came and netted it for me. But I noticed that the property next door, they've got crabapple and cherry trees. They're not fruiting ones, they're just ornamental. They were being bitten right to the end of when they were actually falling off, and the person who does my pruning, who lives up in Leabrook, said that around his area, they were eating even the chilies. And the other thing we noticed was that there was a lack of fertilization. There don't seem to be as many bees around, and things. For the last few years, I had a very prolific quince tree, and I was just not getting much fruit on it. What I got, the possums ate in the end. But the thing was, there wasn't much anyway, because they just didn't seem to be setting the way they were before. So do you find that?
I think that was also exacerbated by the drought as well. Made worse by the drought, but also when you're saying about the possums and even birds and stuff like this, of course, don't forget, they were stressed by the drought too, so they had to eat whatever they possibly could.
Yes, this is what we assume.
I guess with us, we've just got so much that we still get lots ourselves as well. So, but also we have when you're saying about the bees, we have one extra benefit. 2 doors down, there's a beekeeper, so we don't have any further cross-pollination problems at the moment. We do have lots of native bees as well, which helps, and some of the birds cross-pollinate too. So you know, that's the benefit of having the jungle like we have, is that we've got lots of pollinators of different types, and so we don't really have that big problem.
Where did you get the idea of having those tubes, I guess, for the native bees living in? The reason why I ask is I spoke. There's an expert on. I don't know if she's still there, on native bees at the Waite, and I
He is,
was.
I think.
Yeah, with the Dutch name.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her, and in fact, I was going to help her set up an experiment because she believes that, or she did, that the native bees like to live in clay, in banks, in clay banks. Apparently up at Burra, that's the case.
I think that's probably some of the different species.
Maha.
Because where we got the idea is because when something dies, a tree or shrub dies in our place, we don't necessarily take it out straight away. And we notice that then it'll have borer holes in it. And we've watched the native bees going in and out of those holes. So that gives us the idea that, yeah.
Mm.
And so those tubes are actually kangaroo apple tubes that, you know, once because kangaroo apples don't last very long, and once they die, you know, you can use the tubes from their stalks. Tom.
Yeah, one last question, if I could. Have you considered sort of solar panels and batteries on your place in
We've
Felixstow?
got solar and battery.
Oh, you've already got that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And
we
what-
took the advantage when the last Liberal government, South Australia, gave a 50% rebate on
okay.
batteries.
Excellent.
And so
Excellent,
we'd upgraded our solar at the same time and got a battery, because our first solar system we bought in the year 2000 of 1 kilowatt for $5,500.
Excellent. Okay.
So we eventually upgraded. Yeah, I think it was 2020.
All right.
And got a battery as well.
Are you finding it meets most of your needs?
Yeah. I mean, over the whole year and everything like this, I averaged out. And the nice thing is, the thing about the battery too, and if people are thinking about taking advantage of the federal government's rebate at the moment, the nice thing about the battery, it also provides a bit of resilience too. Like a year and a half ago, you might remember in November, there was a big storm, and lots of power lines went out. In fact, our street was out for 5 days,
Wow.
except for one house. So we're actually going around the neighborhood saying, "Oh, do you need anything charged up? Because we've got electricity." In fact, it happened on a Saturday, the storm. On the
Right.
Sunday, at about 5 o'clock, I looked on the app and said, "Shit, the battery's full. Chris, start the washing. I'll get the vacuum cleaner out," because there's still a couple of hours of sun.
John, I detect an accent. Am I right?
I escaped from Canada a long time ago. So,
Oh, so did I. So I'm Calgary. Where are you from?
Ontario.
Ah, excellent. Okay.
Near the birthplace of the Chaffee brothers, who we were just in Mildura last week, and the Chaffee brothers opened up irrigation on the Murray River.
Wow. Great heritage. Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah,
this might be the last, because I'm going to have to go, I think.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah,
this is a bit out of
we
left.
close up in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
This is a bit out of left field. That some years ago, there was an architect living down your way in Monarto.
Yes.
I can't remember his name, but
I should remember his name. Yep.
it was rather one of those awkward surnames out of the Balkans, like Balogaru or something.
Yeah, that's right.
And he was very much into passive cooling and so on. I wonder, and he seems to have faded out. I did write to him but I got an email back that was so arrogant and so
Yeah, he was a bit like that.
that I followed it up. But I wonder if he didn't influence you at all in your building that.
Yeah, because we actually went to his place, and to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, I would have liked to have used some of his ideas about solar chimneys and stuff like this, but we just didn't have the facility to do it. And he actually tried to install a solar chimney at Monarto Zoo, in fact, and I think it worked sort of. Basically, the idea of a solar chimney, and if you go to North Terrace and East Terrace, the Botanic Hotel on that corner, it used to actually use the concept of a solar chimney quite well. Because if you look up at the top of the roof, there's a bit of a sort of little room at the top, which now has totally closed in. Okay, but it used to have shutters. And what would happen was that when they actually had it as a hotel, down in the basement, they'd have all the beer and stuff like this. So that cellar would be nice and cool. They'd open the cellar louvers in the hot summer, and that cool air would sort of gravitate up through the building, because at the top, that turret was painted black. It would heat up, okay? And because it had louvers up there as well, it would present a low pressure system, draw that cool air up from the cellar through the whole building, and would cool the building. So that solar tower, that turret at the top, would actually help cool the building. And Pragauskas, no?
That's it, Pragauskas.
Yeah, he put one at Monarto Zoo, and I think it operated all right, but I think it needed some adjustment. It wasn't perfect, but yeah.
I think we will cut it there. I want to say thank you very much, John. Really interesting. And I'd encourage anybody who hasn't seen it to have a look at the Gardening Australia program too, because it's pretty well covered there.
There's more
thanks a lot.
But good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Very, very good. Lim, did you want to say anything?
I was trying to do clapping. I was trying to do a clap, so I'll just clap. Thank you very much, John. That was terrific. And thank you very much for coming to us. And I'll circulate the recording and the other YouTube if I can.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Gary, thanks for coming too with the last bit.
I was just interested in this. I do a little bit of gardening myself, but I'm not much good at it. Any tips I like to listen to.
Okay. See you later.
Yes, thank you. See you all next time then, hopefully. If you want to go on our list, you're very welcome, John.
Thanks.
Yeah.